What the heck can I really do with an original Xbox? That's right. I can soft mod it, hack the hardware, and generally do whatever the heck I want. I think I'll do that. Why, oh why, did I hack this Xbox? Because I wanted to. Generally, I'm one to repurpose old stuff, and I really didn't want to see this go to waste. And unfortunately, the Thompson drive inside of it was not really cooperating that much, so I figured maybe I can do something to make games installed on the hard drive rather than simply being used as discs. So, that's where I learned about the soft modding community for the Xbox One. Now, this video is not going to be about soft modding the Xbox One. If you want to, I'll go ahead and leave a couple of websites down in the description below for you guys to check out, but I'm not going to go into details of what I essentially did, but I'll give you the breakdown of which method I used. I used the Agent Under Fire mod, which basically makes you put a file onto a memory card, play the game, open the save file, and it ultimately installs the exploit. That's what I did here. For the most part, all I really wanted to do was just bypass the DVD drive because most of my games were scratched, and the drive inside is notorious for being a little, shall we say, unreliable. So when I cracked open the case, my original intention was just to simply make it look cool and then install a bigger hard drive, which we'll get into in a minute. And I ended up putting a 80mm fan inside that glowed red. I could have done a green theme, which is the primary color scheme for the Xbox, but I wanted to make it look a little different, so I decided to go with red. So besides the fan upgrade, the big thing I did was the emblem at the top that you'll notice. It's a frosted emblem that was from the Xbox itself. It was removed, all the paint was stripped off of it, it was sanded down to give it that frosted look. A hole was cut in the middle so that the light from the LEDs, which I put in there, could shine through. And with a little bit of electric trickery, I was able to make it work, and so far it's been running a few years without any problems. So you may notice when it boots up, it glows red and orange, and that's mainly because I messed around with the electronics inside a little bit, and unfortunately it doesn't by default glow red. I had to get it switched out to where it can glow red instead of green, otherwise it would just kind of ruin the whole aesthetic for me. But it doesn't hurt the system any, it's just simply switching a few wires, I believe. So what exactly is it doing for me right now? Well, it's essentially acting as an archive for all the Xbox games that I have, so that if the DVDs get scratched up too bad, I have a little bit of a backup. Some of them still have a bit of a problem, and actually a couple of them didn't even copy over at all because of how bad the discs were, but essentially as long as the discs are pretty clean, it should copy over just fine. The bonus is I don't have to deal with the DVD player anymore, which was the biggest problem because every time the disc would read incorrectly, the game would crash and your game was essentially over. Now that I have them all stored on the hard drive, there's a less chance of that, and the read speeds are actually a lot faster than coming off the DVD drive. And frankly, I've got a PlayStation 3, I have my original Nintendo 64, emulation just isn't for me. Now I know, some of you guys will be saying, hey, you can use it as a DVD player. Which kind of defeated the purpose of the soft mod in the first place because I was trying to get rid of the DVD drive. And besides, I've got a PlayStation 3 for that if I wanted to watch DVDs. And besides, we've got Netflix these days. Who even uses DVDs? Oh, I do. Okay, so I soft modded it, I hard modded it, and I'm storing games on it. Was it really worth all this trouble? For me, it's totally worth it. The first thing is, I actually got to mod a game console, which is something I've never been able to do before, and essentially this thing is a giant PC with PC components. These controller ports in the front are actually USB ports. You can plug in practically anything that has a USB connection into it, provided you wire it up properly. And I think this thing uses a Pentium CPU. I could be wrong about that. It has RAM, it has a graphics card. Essentially, it's a little mini PC. So what can the hack do for you? Well, if you have an Xbox just sitting around and you really want to try out some modifications, this is a good place to start. It's essentially a bare-bones computer with some parts in it that are used in most mainstream PCs, and there is a decent modding community out there for this thing. You can even port Linux into this thing, and supposedly someone's already tried doing Windows XP on this box. Now granted, the limitations of the hardware are a bit low. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any more than the hard drive that you slap in it, otherwise you're stuck with the 8GB one. And the processor isn't that fast, and I believe it only has 64 megabytes of RAM, which is not a lot, trust me. And you can get, and considering this was made over 10 years ago, not really the most versatile machine, but if you have it laying around and you want to do a little project for yourself, I'd say give it a go. Now wait, before you go off and hack your Xbox, like and dislike this video accordingly, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Okay, now you can go and hack it. To me, this was totally worth it. First of all, it's hold your horses before you go out and hacking this thing in your parents' garage. That's harsh.